Ever seen a post on social media from a parent who doesn't vaccinate their kids and won't listen to the hordes of commenters trying to convince them otherwise? Well, today I'm here to tell you how to talk to them to get them to change their minds. Hi, my name is G, and I'm a clinical psychology student studying how persuasive arguments can lead to positive outcomes. So we all know the arguments that vaccine-hesitant people make. The doctors don't know what's in it, Big Pharma's trying to turn a profit by taking shortcuts, it's unnatural, etc. And usually what happens is the respondents either mock them or comment these really lengthy posts with credible sources and all the facts, and it'll probably get a TLDR. So the question is, how do we take this dialogue that clearly doesn't have a positive impact and turn it into something that has a tangible impact? Well, firstly, we need to stop having these conversations in the vicious public arena of free speech on Facebook, because that's clearly getting us nowhere. Commenting back and forth on a post isn't really helpful or useful, and you can see that in any political thread on Facebook or Reddit. And believe me, I know how infuriating it can be to not get positive responses on those posts, because I used to be the one commenting on them. So I know you're probably asking yourself, if not on the internet, where are we going to have these conversations? Well, in person is always best, but any type of messaging or email that is a private back and forth would probably be better. That way you're not getting interrupted by any other commenter, which often happens. So you might have learned this in high school, but there are three classic ways, classic modes of persuasion. Modes that are useful if someone has a position that's opposite or adjacent to you. So the first type that people who are responding to vaccine hesitant people use is logos, which is relying on logic. So that's when people use facts and credible sources and try and get to the bottom of the issue, just relying on the facts. The second kind is ethos, which is relying on the credibility of the speaker, which means anyone who's a scientist or has studied vaccines. And the third one, which in my opinion is the most important, is pathos, or relying on emotions. So let's take an example. Say you're trying to convince your friends that Avengers Endgame is the best movie in the Marvel series. You tell them all about how you got tickets to the IMAX theater, where you tried to get there early so you could get your seats, you got the popcorn, the snacks, everything, you're spending all of your savings, and you've been trying to avoid all these spoilers. So in this case, you're using an emotional appeal that uses anecdotal evidence. And using this type of appeal, where you use an anecdote from your personal experience and you use really emotive language, that's how you're supporting your claim with pathos, which is obviously wrong because all of the Spider-Man movies are better than Avengers Endgame. So, out of the three modes of persuasion, pathos is one of the hardest to sway. So if you're using logos, you can fact check each other basically. So you can say, well, this is my source, this is my source. If you're using ethos, you can look into the credibility of the person you're quoting, or say the person that I'm quoting has more experience, more background. But with pathos, it's really hard because there is no set facts or truths when it comes to emotions or anecdotes. It's personal experience. So something that I've realized in my research on social media, on Facebook and Reddit, is vaccine hesitant people rely on facts born through anecdotal stories. One of the most important things that you have to remind yourself is people who engage with this idea that vaccines aren't safe are usually just parents that fear for the safety of their children. And that's honestly what I've seen is the basis of most of this anti-vax movement. It's just parents that are worried about their children. So this brings us to, who do we want to interact with? Who do we want to have this conversation with? Well, you never want to interact with someone who is either profiting off of this anti-vax sentiment or someone who's extremely firm in their beliefs, like the people that are on Facebook saying vaccines aren't safe, like I don't trust my doctor, etc., etc. Because you're never going to convince those people. And there are more professional organizations and people in the field that can do that work for you. You also don't need to talk to people who are already vaccinated and have every full intention of getting their children vaccinated and getting the rest of their vaccines. What you want to focus on is that middle ground. You want to focus on the people who are unsure or doubtful. They've read these things on the internet. They're not really sure what to make of it. Those are the people you want to interact with. And that's where most vaccine hesitant people are. They're in that middle ground. So, with all of this information that I've just given you, we get to the main point. How do we talk to vaccine hesitant people? Well, rule number one of any conversation that has sort of been polarized by all these comments in the media is be respectful. Nothing is going to get you farther away from your goal than asking gotcha questions or mocking their fear. Second, ask questions. That's the best way to get to the bottom of why they're concerned. You know, how did you engage with this idea? How did you find out about it? Where are you looking online? Like, did your kids bring it up? Did you see it on the news? Blah, blah, blah. Asking questions is going to help you with how you respond, because you want to respond to the specific situation that they're in. You don't want to just come out and say, oh, well, vaccines are proven to be this. You know, if their concern is, well, my sister came up to me and said that her child got a shot and they got a rash. You want to talk about that. You want to talk about the personal experience that they're having. As Natalie Wynn, a famous YouTuber called ContraPoints, mentioned in an interview, you can be a logical success and a persuasive failure in an argument, unless you're strategic and purposeful in how you're communicating with this other person. So after you ask questions and you have that information coming back to you, that's where you start relating to them on an experiential level, relate to their emotions, to their fear for kids. And then you can bring in facts into your anecdote where you quote the CDC or doctors that you know. That's really the gateway to have people actually listen and understand you on a critical level. Now, something that I find really useful is mentioning this concept of acceptable risk. So what that basically means is we go through our everyday lives taking acceptable risks, like biking to work on the road, or taking a shortcut home, or cramming for a test the night before. Shout out to literally all of my college professors. So something you can bring into that conversation is vaccines and medicine. It's an acceptable risk. It's not a hazard. It's something that you can utilize to make sure that you're happy and healthy throughout your life and you don't have to worry about these communicable diseases. At the end of the day, you're not debating, you're not arguing. You're having a conversation with another human being and trying to understand them. Now, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned positive outcomes. What I didn't say is that positive outcomes don't mean winning the conversation. The positive outcome is critically thinking about a very real problem, something that's very polarizing, and trying to understand each other's point of view so that you can better understand how to communicate. So that is how you talk to someone who is anti-vax or vaccine hesitant. I hope you take this information in this video and roll with it and apply it to other conversations that might be polarizing. Until next time, friends, think critically, speak kindly.